Podcast. Okay. Hey, everyone. It is the I Don't Get It podcast, and this is Ashley.
And Lauren.
And Naz.
And today we are going to talk about sort of a sad topic, but one that is so often not talked about. Miscarriages.
Yes.
Sorry, the tone was off there. We're going to talk about miscarriages today. And I thought, well, it's just like crazy, just to like start off, that everybody doesn't tell people, you know, we don't tell people when we're pregnant until like 2.5 months because you're supposed to like be out of the first trimester because you don't want to risk people knowing that you're pregnant and you miscarrying. Is that like crazy? That's like a secret we keep for so long?
Nuts.
Just like the shame. I don't like think it's shameful.
But
like
I feel like
sadness.
people do think it's shameful. And it was like when we talked to Becca that I feel like sparked the inspiration behind this podcast. And I feel like the older I get, I keep meeting a lot of my friends that are having miscarriages and they're so scared to tell everyone. And it's just it makes me sad that people are scared to say it, because if we just all got on a podcast and talked about it and tried to normalize it, then maybe people wouldn't be as shamed about it. Because it happens to everyone.
Are
a lot of people.
I know
not everyone,
it's like I know
obviously.
people say like they feel ashamed or whatever. I think that's like.
I feel like they don't want to let people down. Like they don't want to be like, oh, I'm pregnant and everyone will be happy, and they just don't want to let people down. But really, you're probably going to be the saddest out of everyone, so you should probably share your sadness, you know?
I also feel like, because for me, I have high risk of infertility. So this is like one of my biggest fears, which I'm really happy we're doing this podcast. But I think for me, I would just feel, if it does happen to me, I would feel like I'm broken, I feel like. And I would feel like I'd be scared at the fear of never being able to bear a child, even though I know there's like a million other options out there. It doesn't take away the fact that some people just want to have their own. Yeah. And some people can't. And that's like a really scary thing. So for me, miscarriages would be scary for me in that sense.
Yeah,
where
I
would be
understand that.
scared
That's
that
scary
maybe
fear,
I wouldn't be able to have one. I think that's a lot of the fear.
I think that I think possibly there's a lot of people who just don't know how frequent they are, and that's why they feel a certain way when they have one. Because I should probably pull up the correct stat, but I do believe it's like 1 in every 5 women will experience miscarriage, and like 1 in every 10 pregnancies are miscarriages.
Yeah.
So like it's so common that it's something like I don't know that we should ever be.
I feel like until this year, I didn't know how common it was.
Yeah,
I am exactly with Lauren. We're like, because now I'm getting to that age, like I said, where all my friends are trying and they're having it. And I'm like, I'm really happy everyone's like talking about it, because if and when this happens to me, I won't be as scared as I was like a year ago, let's say.
I will say, like, I feel like I've known this over the past couple years, but if you were to ask me like 7 years ago, I would have been like, oh no, it's I would think it was a rare thing.
Right. But then there's so much more to miscarriages than just like, okay, it can happen, but there's a chance you can still have a kid. It's like, I'm sure it messes with you psychologically on a million levels.
Oh, 100%.
And I'm sure it's something that never leaves you ever. Like, remember when Jade opened up about it even? You know, like no one knew. Like, it's like you never forget, and it's something that stays with you forever.
Definitely. I feel like I'd wake up every day thinking about it. But we have some people coming on today. We have Jamie Otis from Married at First Sight. Love her. Huge Married at First Sight fan. And she has had...
I feel like she's had 3. I don't want to speak for her.
Yeah.
Because Lauren and I are a little bit more familiar with her situation as we followed her on Married at First Sight. I want Naz to actually lead the interview with Jamie for the first half, because I want you to be able to get the point of view from a person who doesn't know. Like, I want you to ask questions because you aren't aware of her fertility struggles. Right. So we're going to get her on the phone now, and then we'll talk about
what happened?
Yeah, what happened and how they're continuing to get over this and trying now, because she recently miscarried a couple months ago.
Okay.
All right, guys, we are now joined by Jamie Otis, who has a podcast of her own with her husband. Jamie, tell us what podcast they can listen to you on.
Okay, so our podcast is Hot Marriage, Cool Parents.
Yeah.
I love that title.
Pretty much everything we're not.
I'm sure that you've talked about miscarriages and fertility issues on your podcast, but we wanted to give our audience a brief-ish summary of what you've struggled with the past, how many years has it been now?
So, well, my husband and I were married at first sight 5 years ago, and I pretty much wanted a baby immediately. I work in labor and delivery as a nurse, and so like day in and day out delivering babies, I was always envisioning what it would look like to have my own baby. And, you know, we got pregnant about a year and a half into our marriage, and unfortunately, the first time that I delivered our firstborn son, Jonathan, he was born, you know, straight went to heaven because he was born, like, he wasn't old enough. I was 17 weeks pregnant, so he wasn't compatible with life at that point. And there's really nothing that they can do. And I obviously am fully aware because I work in this field. So it was literally nothing that, I mean, I literally had always envisioned like the first moment that, you know, I have my baby in my arms and my husband, and what's it going to be like when I'm pushing, and is it going to hurt, and all these things that you always wonder before you have your first baby. And then, you know, you just never envision having to say goodbye to your first baby the same day that you meet them. So that was, you know, obviously devastating. And I was very, very depressed for a very long time.
You were 17 weeks along, and you had announced this to the public that you guys are pregnant, correct?
Yeah. So after, you know, typically in in the American culture, we tend to wait till after the first trimester to reveal your pregnancy. So we were well into our second trimester. We were on the Today Show with Kathy Lee and Hoda to share our pregnancy. And then a week later, we deliver him and lose him. And it was just all such a whirlwind, you know, because obviously you can't anticipate that. I did not think that was going to happen. And it was just such a whirlwind, and like just honestly the worst, darkest place I've ever been in my whole entire life. You know, I just never felt like I couldn't imagine ever like smiling again or feeling like it was okay to smile, because, you know, as a woman, like my goal in life is to be a mom. At least that was for me. It's always been for me. And then to have that kind of like, and like I would see ultrasounds of him rolling around in my belly and just seeming so happy and content in there. And then literally just one day he's gone. And I just felt so like the deepest, darkest hole, like in my soul and in like my physical body. Like I was like, I have to get pregnant again. Like I just felt like nothing could make me happy unless I had a baby to like bring home and to love on and to see looking back at me smiling. And yeah, I just felt, I was of course wondering like, what did I do wrong? For, you know, like, did I eat something wrong? Was I exercising too much? Was I host the show Married at First Sight Unfiltered. So I was traveling a lot, and we were actually shooting the show in Miami, and I was bleeding a lot. And I was like, you know, just kind of, I don't know. I didn't know. I was like, should I stop, you know, shooting the show? But then I was like, I don't want to be dramatic because, you know, that seems like, I don't know. It's just like very dramatic to be like, wait a minute, I'm bleeding and I'm pregnant. I don't know. I just felt like it was very dramatic. And so I was like, I'm not going to do that. You know, I wasn't really in pain or anything. So I was like, okay, I'll just kind of like sit this out. But I literally remember like hoping that when I stand up, there's not going to be blood on the chair because I was bleeding so much.
Wow.
And then, well, you know, now when I watch that season and I see myself and I know, you know, I guess a lot of people don't know that was like kind of the start of it, I guess, of this miscarriage. So it was very bittersweet for me to have to like rewatch that, you know, when it came on air, because, you know, I just remember like all the memories come flooding back to when we were shooting the show. And, but yeah, so then, you know, I did, you know, I think the only thing that really brought me any sort of hope after going through that type of loss was other women who would reach out to me on Instagram and social media, and they would say, you know, they would share their stories about how they had suffered a loss as well, or someone in their family did. And it made me feel so much less alone. And I think that you know, had I never announced our pregnancy, I probably would have never shared this loss, because it's just not our norm to share it. So it was like something that you keep hush and no one wants to talk about it. It's very uncomfortable, but it's almost like a bittersweet thing that we had no choice but to share it out loud, because everyone already knew we were pregnant. And what came from that was all of these women, like just like almost like wrapping their arms around me, sending me their stories about how they suffered a loss as well. And they've never even, some of these women would email me or like leave a comment on my Instagram and say, I've never shared this, or DM me on Instagram. I've never shared this with anybody, but this happened to me. And then they would say, and now I have this beautiful quote unquote rainbow baby, which I had no idea what a rainbow baby was. But a rainbow baby is a baby that, you carried to term, or at least you carried to life after having a loss.
Right.
And, and literally that was the only thing that gave me hope, was to hear these other women that I don't even know, out in, Instagram or Facebook or whatever, sending me these, or even through my email, sending me their messages about how they had suffered a loss in some capacity, and then they carried a baby, and this baby's healthy, and they'd share pictures. And I was like, oh my gosh, I want this to be me. Like, this is going to be me. And I would just kind of hold on to that hope that, we're going to have a baby to bring home and love and, and rock and hear laugh.
All right, guys, Mother's Day and Father's Day is right around the corner, and you guys have heard me talk about this sponsor that I'm about to talk about, like, at length, because I am so obsessed with the concept and idea, and it's Storyworth. So we all have those family members that love telling stories, or just family members and friends that we don't feel like we know enough or ask the right questions to. Example, my father and mother. Even though on a daily basis I ask my friends questions, I feel like there's things about my mom and my dad that I don't know that I'd love to know, like what was their grandma like, or what toys, if their house caught on fire, what toy would they say when they were little? Like, just like random things like that.
I also love this for people who have like stories in their family that they want to be retold generation after generation.
Yes, that's perfect for that. So Storyworth is basically a subscription service that you can gift your parents or anyone in your life that you love, but it's perfect for Mother's Day, because what it'll do is it'll send them questions every week that you want answers to, and you can turn it into a book afterwards, and you can also actually make an audio version if they don't, want to type it out, which is so, so cool.
But yeah, it's a hardcover printed book that they can create, black and white interior with a color cover, and it could be up to, get this, 480 pages. You can like write a book. Yeah. You can save and edit all your stories on storyworth.com. The data is secure and everything is private by default, and you control who sees your stories. Again, perfect way to preserve your memories, pass on treasures to your children and their future families.
Yeah. So recently, guys, I gifted this to my mom and my dad for Father's Day last year, actually, which is why I'm talking about it now. But I remember my dad answered a question, and he answered it, and it was about my grandmother, and he sent me all these pictures, and I learned all this stuff about my grandmother that I never knew, like that she was an actress actually at a point in time in her life, and that she was a host, which was crazy, because I was like, oh my God. And my dad's like, yeah, you've always gotten it from your grandma. And my grandma's also a nurse, so I always just knew her as a nurse. So thanks to Storyworth, I like learned more about my family and like my heritage through
That's awesome.
Yeah.
If you guys want to try Storyworth and get $20 off, go to Storyworth, STORYWORTH.com/IDGI.
That's our acronym, guys.
Yep.
I don't get it. IDGI. So storyworth.com
$20 off
/IDGI. I feel like you guys were like the first couple that I can remember that went public with a pregnancy and then had to announce the miscarriage. Do you know of any other celebrity reality couple that went through this?
I'm sure there's been someone, but yeah, I don't really know, because not that I know of, but I'm sure there must have been someone, at some point. But yeah, there really was no, like, I didn't know how to handle it at all. Obviously, like, there was no like forum on like how to, like, I don't know, how to approach it, how to talk to people about it. So I literally just I was so depressed anyways. I just did my own thing. I literally would sit in my greasy hair in my sweatpants day in and day out and just like blog. And I don't even really blog that much anymore, but I like needed to blog on my website and just be like, just tell my story, because even though like my family and friends, of course they love me, but it's such a taboo topic, which is just, it makes me angry now. Like I'm kind of at the, like past the point of like depression and sadness. I'm almost like angered that it's like such a taboo topic that even my family and friends, like they just don't know what to say, and that they're not meaning ill. Of course they're not, but it's just like everybody, including women, like we just kind of turn our shoulders to this topic because no one knows what to say. And so then it's uncomfortable for everybody involved. And it's like, oh my gosh, someone has to start talking about this so that we can kind of just shed light on it. So it's not so taboo and it's not so uncomfortable because, you know, the woman who is suffering needs someone to just listen to her. And it's shocking to me too, because I was like, man, if I hadn't already shared that I was pregnant and if I hadn't, you know, had to be public about the loss, would I have had to just like smile? And I just think of all the women who work in a certain workplace or, you know, like maybe teachers or, you know, in a cubicle at some office and they don't tell anybody that they're pregnant in the first trimester because you're not supposed to. It's so quote unquote taboo. And then if they suffer a loss, they have to paste a smile on their face and go to work and no one knows. And I'm like, how insensitive is that for women everywhere? And like, I get it if maybe you don't want, because my husband's always like, well, maybe some women don't want to share it. I'm like, okay, that's perfectly fine. Like, absolutely, you don't have to. But why should you have to like wait to share the best news of your life? You're going to love this thing. And as a woman, and you know, if you like, as a woman, the minute you get pregnant, you're like, you're just in love. Like you just can't even help it. It's just like your DNA, and you can't like control that feeling. And so and I tried, honestly. So then when I did get pregnant with my daughter, our quote unquote rainbow baby, I tried my best to kind of protect myself, to be honest. Like, and I didn't want to be that way. I told myself, don't do that to like this baby. But I was so terrified of losing her too. And just going through that same type of depression that I would try really hard to kind of, this is like almost heartbreaking to admit out loud. And I feel like I'm going to get, you know, it's just, this part is very heartbreaking because I don't want my daughter to ever even know this, but I would try to kind of separate myself so I wouldn't go through that depression if God forbid I lost her. Because I don't know, I was very scared. And so I remember the first time I did yoga pregnant and they'd have you like put your hand on your belly and then put your hand on your heart and like just breathe it in and connect with your unborn baby. And I just bawled and bawled and bawled. And I was like, why am I not connecting with her? Like, and so then from there I was like, you know, but it's such sense. It's a wild thing to go through as a woman. And I think it's awesome you guys are talking about it because even if you haven't gone through it, you might, it happens to 1 in 4 women. So
I know, 1 in 4. Thanks for that proper statistic.
Yeah, it truly does. And, you know, I'm a labor and delivery nurse. So I was in, you know, I've been around so many women and we always hear like their histories of how many pregnancies they've had prior. And it just doesn't ever feel real. Like you can hear a statistic and you're just like, yeah, whatever, until it happens to you or like your sister or your cousin or your best friend. And, you know, I think this is just important for us to be able to talk about it so that we can know like, okay, so how do we handle this? Like, how can we support this woman who is going through if you picture any type of a loss in your life, like it's the same thing when you have an unborn child, you know, especially when you deliver this baby and you see this baby and you just see everything that's being ripped away from you, like just like that.
Jamie, we literally, first of all, I'm so sorry for your loss. Like, I can't imagine. And that's exactly what we're trying to do on this podcast. But since you work in this field, I actually have like a couple of questions. What biologically is a miscarriage? Like, what happens to your body during a miscarriage?
Well, so there's a lot of different things that can happen, but ultimately, like, so there could be something called a chemical pregnancy where your body kind of believes that it's pregnant. So your HCG, your pregnancy hormones are all increasing. Your body is physically feeling pregnant. Like you could be feeling nauseous and your breast could be tender and all those things, but you're not truly pregnant because the egg never really implanted itself. And so
it just kind of like met the egg, but it never implanted.
Right. And so it just kind of passed. So your period will probably be quote unquote late, but really like and that's why. And honestly, you can even come with a positive pregnancy test. But typically you don't see these chemical pregnancies. Like 20 years ago, you wouldn't hear about them because we didn't have these early pregnancy tests detecting it. But now that you can take like a pregnancy test early before you miss your period, you can detect it. But there's a realm of different things that can be categorized as a miscarriage. And ultimately what causes it is, at the end of the day, is either the fetus doesn't grow within your body. So like the placenta might not grow or it may not be, like for whatever, so there's a lot of, so first of all, there's blood factors. I mean, I don't want to be scientific for you, but there could be blood clotting disorders that run in your family that you may have that don't allow your placenta to grow in order to be able to feed your fetus, essentially. Or it could, the egg could be, it could be implanted like in a tube. That's called an ectopic pregnancy. And that's super dangerous because if it continues to grow within your tube, it will burst. And then that's like a medical emergency, as you can imagine. I mean, there are multiple different ways that you can have a quote unquote miscarriage or a failed pregnancy. So, I mean, honestly,
that's interesting. I didn't know that before you just said that. I guess I always assumed it was like one way. It was like one thing. I didn't know that there were like multiple things that could lead to it.
That's why you can have a miscarriage or a loss so many different stages of your pregnancy. So, typically they say after the first trimester, you're in the clear. But for us with Jonathan, my water must have broken. So like essentially for him, it wasn't anything to do with his umbilical cord. Sometimes that could be wrapped and turn into something called a true knot, which eliminates any sort of like oxygen and nutrients to your baby. But there could be something called a placental abruption, which again, I don't want to get too scientific, but that's where the placenta tears off the uterine line, like the wall. And so then you just bleed out. Oh my God. There's a lot of different things that can happen. You could have placenta previa where your placenta is like over your cervix. And as you begin to dilate, you'll start to bleed out again at, where you're at risk for hemorrhaging, having a huge amount of blood loss. B, your baby's at risk because now the placenta, which is its lifeline, is no longer attached to your body. So it's not getting enough oxygen and nutrients to your baby. There are so many different things that can happen, which is why it's pregnancy's not for nothing. It's kind of the whole ride is scary because things could happen at any point. And so for our first pregnancy with Jonathan, I was bleeding a little bit, but every time I had an ultrasound, he looked great. I would see him in there bouncing. And so, and my doctor would say, oh yeah, this happens, sometimes this just happens and it's just a fluke, who knows? But babies can still be born. And my sisters were like, yeah, we bled a little bit, no big deal. And so I was just kind of like, stop, being dramatic, Jamie. Like, doesn't mean you're going to lose your baby. And then after, once I got into the second trimester, I knew the chances of like losing your baby at that point, like they fall drastically. So it's like maybe like less than 10% lose their baby after the second trimester. But it still happens. And I guess, truly, I did have, tests ran to figure out what the heck happened, and truly that we still have no idea really what happened with our firstborn son.
So you still don't know. But then the same thing, unfortunately, is the least I could say, happened after you gave birth to a healthy baby girl, and then you got pregnant again, you announced the baby, and then you lost it again, another one.
Yeah, well, so now I have truly, after I went through the first loss with Jonathan, when I said before, like, my family and friends, they meant well, but I never, even my husband, like, I just don't think people know how to handle it. And so my only kind of form of support, the only thing that kind of like picked me up was talking to these women who were a lot of times just wanted to remain anonymous because it's kind of just such a stigma about talking about this type of thing. But these women that were sharing their stories about their own loss and, the hope that they would give me when they shared that, yes, I had a loss, but then I had a healthy baby. That is what really picked me up off the gutter, like out of the darkest place that I was in. And so for me, there was like a couple things that I wanted to do when we got pregnant again. And I made this decision and I promised our firstborn son, Jonathan, that A, I would never forget him, and B, I'm going to do babies like him justice in the future. And even if I never really thought that I was going to have such issues having babies. Like, I guess that's another thing you just don't think of. But so we got pregnant. We've been trying to get pregnant now for over a year with, another healthy baby. And, we got pregnant and I was like really, really hopeful. And I was like, this time I am not waiting, because for all the women who don't want to wait, I will do it first for you. I will put it out there. Let's avoid this like stigma, the taboo of saying, the minute I get a positive pregnancy test and the minute I feel comfortable like within myself, and I told like my family and my close friends or whoever I wanted to tell, that I'm going to put it out there on social media to all my friends, as I call them. And
I love this so much. Yes.
But honestly, but mostly just so that other women can feel safe to just even tell their own family and friends. Like, it's okay to tell them early, because God forbid you lose the pregnancy. You need support.
Yeah, you
like,
don't wanna be alone.
you can't just do that all by yourself and paste a smile on your face. So I like almost like made it my mission to like, and it's hard too. Honestly, it's very scary to put it out there, because, you know, you just don't want to go through that, I guess. I don't know.
We have to take a moment for one of our very favorite sponsors. They are going to make your home feel like your home. They're going to bring you joy. They're going to bring joy into your home. Everybody wants a haven, a special place that feels unique to them. And Joybird Furniture empowers you to create the furniture and space that brings you the most joy. It's going to make your house feel like a home. I know that sounds cliche, but truly their pieces are unique, and it's going to make you feel this way.
Joybird offers a range of kid and pet friendly upholstery, which is what I need in my life because I got dogs running around everywhere.
And my favorite part about Joybird is that you can personally design your piece. And I officially know I'm old, guys, because I get more joy out of interior designing my apartment and going to design places and design websites than I do almost doing most other things in life. And so I bought this brown wooden chair from Joybird. It's an accent chair in my living room. It's absolutely stunning. I got it with like gray cotton upholstery. And what's really awesome about Joybird is they have like other alternatives and options on their website. So what I did was I went on Joybird, and I like changing things up. So I ordered brown leather cushions for my Joybird chair, and now it's a completely different chair. So they offer so many different options for you to just switch things up.
You can switch it to
and
be,
it's
like,
all at an
outdoors,
affordable
too.
price. Yes, the chair looks like it's like $1,000
And
chair,
if you
it's
guys
not.
are unsure about anything, they have a 360-day home trial. So skip the furniture store and bring the showroom home. You can buy the piece, design it exactly the way you want it, put it in your house, and decide if it fits your like aesthetic.
See how Joybird can help you design your dream space by going to joybird.com/get-it. That is JOYBIRD.com/get-it. And you're going to receive an exclusive offer for 25% off your first order by just using the code GET-IT. That is an amazing offer. You can start looking at furniture at joybird.com today.
Find your joy today at joybird.com/get-it.
Jamie, why do you think this has become so taboo? Like, what happened in society, like, throughout the years? Like, why do you think it is so shameful to some women?
Well, because the first feeling you get, and you wonder if others are wondering too, is like, what did you do wrong in your pregnancy? Like, what did you do wrong? Like, did I not take all my vitamins right? Did I like exercise too hard? Did I not eat properly? Like, was I too stressed? Was I traveling too much? Like, I mean, you think of every single question that you did wrong, because our bodies are supposed to nurture these babies. So instantly
You blame it on yourself. But can all those things lead to a miscarriage? Like stress, traveling too much, can those things lead to a miscarriage?
So like our DNA, like we're structured that if we're not like in the healthiest state, then of course, like we're not going to be able to carry a baby, unfortunately. But that's just like, so technically yes, but also no. I mean, there are crack addicts that are not in the healthiest state, and they have babies who are born addicted. So you can't blame it on yourself. And that's the thing is that, but really, I think the other thing, there's two things I think that make it taboo. I think you blame yourself, and you don't want others to blame you. You don't want people to like, I don't know. You just don't want that. You don't want anybody to question, I guess, what you've done, or what you haven't done, I guess, in order to be able to carry this baby full term. But B, no one talks about it. Like, so the fact that I don't think it has recently become taboo. I think that it's been taboo for years and years and years and years. And it's just now it's women, I think almost like with social media, the fact that we can kind of talk anonymously on there if we wanted to. And we see other women going through the same thing. But before it was like always just communities, and like you just didn't really want, like it was always uncomfortable to talk about because no one ever talked about it. And so therefore it's just, there's like this stigma associated with like, well, with like chatting about this, but also like sharing before your second trimester, because then it's like, ooh, then if you lose it, then you have to talk about it. And it's like, oh, really?
So when you announced the baby in this past fall, 2018, you did announce a little early. It wasn't a full 3 months, right? Now, did you do that on purpose? You did on purpose. Okay. Okay. I just wanted to like clarify that was on purpose.
And that's something you are continuing to strive for, right? Like for people around the world to be excited when they're pregnant and not.
If I pee on the stick and saw positive, I'd run around telling strangers I was pregnant.
I think I want to do
Some
the
people
same.
do tell strangers and don't tell their friends and family,
I would tell
which
everyone.
is really interesting, right, Jamie? Like, but I imagine this is such an isolating feeling, especially like what was it like with your husband? Because it's not like they're carrying it, but it's also their child. Was that also hard for him to like relate to that feeling? Can you talk about that a little bit?
What do you mean though? Like
how does the loss feel for them, being that it wasn't in their body?
Like, do you feel very isolating in the feeling?
Yeah. So I know you guys are obviously friends with Jade and Tanner, and they were just on our podcast.
They were just in our apartment before we got on the phone with you.
Oh, really? That's so funny. So, we were talking about that because I feel like the men kind of get like the shaft of it all because it's not their baby, and they don't have the same connection that a woman does with this fetus. Obviously, they're not growing it, but yet they do still have feelings. I mean, that is still their unborn child. And I think that they're so quick to be like, I think that they're very quick to just kind of like support their wives and just kind of like put them, like brush themselves aside. Like I know for sure my husband was like that. And I know for sure Tanner was, because he was just saying that. And I think that there's something like this also needs to be talked about. Like men have feelings too, and that's their baby too. And it's hurtful and painful for them as well. It's just, again, uncomfortable to talk about for everybody involved. And so, I guess they just don't talk about it, but 100%. And I think that they grieve differently too. So that's another thing that I think is so important for women to know is that men, don't you worry, mama. Like they're obviously hurting as well that their baby just lost, like they just lost their baby. Okay. I'll just give you an example. So with Jonathan, with this baby, our firstborn son who we delivered, we're in the hospital. I'm bleeding like profusely. I'm in so much pain because I didn't know it, but I was like in labor about to deliver him. And I didn't necessarily, like, I didn't think that wasn't supposed to happen like that. And my husband, I kid you not, he's on his work laptop while we're in the waiting room. And I'm like, what are you doing? And I'm like, go get the nurse. Like, I'm bleeding. Like, I need help. Like, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, my emotions are all over the place. And so then he like puts his work away and I'm like, and then I kid you not, we deliver our son and you basically say goodbye to him and then go home and just kind of like numb. And the next day my husband wakes up and goes to work. And I'm like, really? Like, what are you like? And I literally sat alone inside our house in the dark, all by myself, just like crying like a fool. And I didn't necessarily think until a couple days. I mean, I wasn't even thinking straight, like how that seems so insensitive of my husband, but like really he was going through so much himself and he didn't know how to handle it. He didn't know how to cope. And so his thing for me, I like literally sat like just like a blob on a couch all day in the dark and like didn't do a thing. And I cried, but my husband was like, he just had to get back to like normal life and work. And that was just how he was trying to cope. And so that seems so insensitive. And I guess I want like other women, like I want women to know that if their husband acts in a way that doesn't seem like they're sad, or it doesn't seem like they seem to care or whatever the case may be, like, don't necessarily think that they don't care or that they're not sad, because they are. Like, it's just one of those things you do not know how you're going to handle it until it happens to you. And then, you just live and you don't even like, you're just so numb to the world that you don't even pay attention to your actions. You don't even know like what you're doing because you're just so numb to the world, really. Like you're just like oblivious to everything that's going on.
This is like a horrible question, but I'm asking it for the people out there who are thinking this baby was like, well, what are you at 17 months? How old are you? Let me do
how the baby.
Like about 4 months. You're about 4 months.
Yeah.
So a lot of people out there are probably thinking 4 months. Is this really a baby? Is this really a human yet? And they may be wondering why you felt so attached to something that wasn't full term yet.
Okay. So
I mean, I don't believe this at all. I'm seriously asking for the people out there who are thinking it's not, or it's not alive yet.
Let me tell you that when I delivered my son Jonathan, and I literally could hold him in my hand, he had eyes, a nose, 10 fingers, 10 toes. He was a perfectly formed little baby boy. Genitalia. I mean, I remember Doug and I were like, oh my gosh, like he's definitely a boy because he has a penis. Like, it was just shocking. Like, he was a perfectly formed human being, just super duper tiny. And I mean, I remember I would try to kiss him, and his skin was so sensitive that it like stuck to my lips, and then I felt like I was hurting him, and I was like so they are at 4 months, first of all, they are fully formed. Like, they're just not compatible with life. They just need to develop and grow more within your womb. And if you're not, and that's the hard part that's really painful, is that for whatever reason, my body wasn't able to carry him. And other than that, though, he seemed to be a perfectly normal, healthy baby. And my water broke. And so I had absolutely no amniotic fluid, and that's not compatible with life. And, and then the rest is history. And I don't know what caused that. I mean, I wish they could tell me literally stop eating like kale, and I would say, okay, I'll never eat kale again. Like, if that's what caused it, or never, like, people think chemicals. So like, if I wear a perfume, I'm like, okay, I'll never wear that perfume. Tell me what it was. I'll never do it again. I wish I knew. I have no idea.
Okay, so we're going to take a break to talk about one of our favorite sponsors. They are the coolest, best wireless earbuds that I've ever used. They're called Raycon, and I see Jared's little Raycon box everywhere we go. He carries these earbuds around in his pocket, in every backpack he has. It's just, he loves these earbuds, and so do I.
They're half the price. They're half the price of the other premium wireless headphones. So basically, they're so much bomber.
You know which ones we're talking about, right? But those are by that guy, and these are co-founded by Ray J, and celebrities like Snoop Dogg are obsessed. So if Snoop is using Raycon
and listening to music through these Raycons,
I'm pretty sure you would, you're gonna like your Raycons.
Absolutely. And for some reason, I feel like my ears are shaped a little weird. So like the average earbud doesn't comfortably fit in my ear, but Raycon's E50 wireless earbuds totally are comfortable, and they're easy to take anywhere. But again, like Lauren was saying, my favorite part about it is that they, like, other earbuds cost hundreds of dollars, and these are half the price. So you're getting really good quality earbuds for half the price.
Jared's here to butt in.
Well, I heard you guys talking about these headphones, and I can tell you personally, because I wear them at the gym every single day, they do not fall out of my ears, which is huge for Bluetooth. And then, what was I going to say? Oh, that little case that you're talking about that you find everywhere. That's actually not only just a case for them, but the charger as well, which I find very convenient, because all you have to do is plug the cord in. And then bada bing, bada boom.
Bada bing, bada boom. And they're stylish. They're not ugly, which is like, hello, number one.
I got to say one more thing about these things. I can't stand using if you're still in the old school and you're using wired headphones, they're the worst, because when you're working out, you hit them out of your ear, and nothing's more annoying. Or if you're on a plane and they're stuck in the TV thing, every time you walk by or like make a move, boom,
and detangling them is the worst. It's like 5 minutes out of your life just trying to like unknot them.
So you just put them in this little box, charge them.
They come in many different colors, and they come at an unbeatable price. So go to buyraycon.com.
Spell that out.
That's B-U-Y.
That's buy. Oh, yeah.
I'm spelling it. BUYRAYCON.com, and use the promo code GETIT20. That's GETIT20 to get 20% off your order. That's the promo code GETIT20 at buyraycon.com for 20% off the Raycon wireless earbuds.
So if you guys have been eyeing a pair, now is the time to get an amazing deal. Again, one more time, it's buyraycon.com, promo code GETIT20. All right, back to the podcast. So Jamie, there's no way, like there's still a lot of people out there that have no idea why they had a miscarriage. So I guess we're not that far along technology-wise and study-wise where we know the exact things that cause them. I'm just learning this now.
Well, there are different, I mean, I can't even tell you how many tests at this point. So I've taken so many different lab tests, but yeah, you're right. I mean, truly, like,
that's nuts.
Yeah.
That
yeah.
I always thought people like knew. I guess I would just assume people knew like what the reason was. Like I have endometriosis and fibroids, so I know I'm a little more prone to infertility than the average woman. So for me,
you do? Oh my goodness, that's that is a little scary.
Yeah, because the fibroids grow on my ovary. And the endo grows all over that area. So that's already like, so to me, I'm like, okay, maybe I'm one of those women that's prone. Yeah, but I guess that's nuts that it could like, it's 1 out of 4 women, and a lot of women don't know why. But what's incredible is that you did have a kid after, which that's what a rainbow child is a child that's born after a miscarriage.
Yeah.
Or stillborn.
That's incredible. But this thing is just, it's very like, I'm so curious about it. It's so
the thing about the rainbow baby is that it's the idea that a rainbow comes after every storm, and you are literally in a storm at whether it be infant loss or pregnancy loss. It's a effing storm, and you're so like it is the worst storm of your life. And then when you have this baby that you were delivered and she's crying and looking at you and you're like, oh my God, like it was truly a rainbow after the storm. Mm-hmm. Like I get it now, like why they call it a rainbow baby.
What are some like symptoms, like physical symptoms that you would feel like when you're about to have a miscarriage or you think you're going to have a miscarriage that you could look for?
So ultimately when you're miscarrying, you're essentially in like you're delivering. Like, so you could
so you just
expect
don't know.
like, you could definitely expect cramping, like heavy cramps, definitely like bright red bleeding in a lot of it. Those are like that's like the two main things is like bleeding a lot and really heavy cramps, like the worst period cramps you've ever had in your life.
Okay.
Because you're essentially contracting, like having contractions.
Speaking of this, Alec Baldwin's wife this month announced to the public that she felt like she was on the verge of having a miscarriage. She was having those symptoms, and then she ended up having one. How powerful did you think that was that she came out and admitted all that?
Wow, I actually did not know that.
Oh, really?
No, I didn't. So wait, what happened?
She like went on her Instagram. She was like, I'm having symptoms of a miscarriage. I've had a couple before. I have a feeling this baby is not going to be with me very much longer. And then like a week after saying all that she was experiencing the symptoms, they did announce that they had the miscarriage. But she said she wanted to get out there and tell women because
I think we're moving. I think we're moving the needle. I feel like more people are opening up about it, and it makes me so happy. Jamie, how long were you sad? I mean, I'm sure obviously it's a loss, so forever in your life you will always be grieving essentially. But in that almost depressive state that you described, like how long was that after?
You know what's interesting? So I've had 3 losses since my husband. So in the last 5 years, my husband and I have had 3 losses. And with Jonathan, I delivered him, and so I saw him, and he was my firstborn child. But like it's that. I'll probably never, I don't know if I'll ever get over that, like truly, because I connected with him in such a way, you know, but it's funny because for him, you know, I really feel more connected to him, and I really believe that he's in heaven and I'm going to see him again someday. I mean, I genuinely believe that in my heart.
You are.
And then, but with the chemical pregnancy, you know, it was so early that really a fetus hadn't even been formed. And this seems, you know, almost like insensitive, but I was almost thankful because I was like, good, like if I couldn't handle another baby like Jonathan, like I was just so thankful it happened so early. Also like so devastated at the same, it was a mix of emotions. So with Jonathan, I'm still like just bummed. Like I don't know if I'll ever get over that, but the deep depression lasted for seriously 6 months. Like, and I wouldn't admit it out loud because I was embarrassed to admit that. Like I felt like I was supposed to move on and be happy, and people probably didn't understand why I was still sad. So I was like, let me just pretend like I'm happy. But I was so depressed for 6 months. And pretty much 6 months later, I got pregnant with my daughter, and I swear, like that's what took me out of it. Wow. So like on his due date, I got pregnant. I found out that I was pregnant with our daughter, and
oh my God, that's nuts.
Yeah.
What advice do you have? Because I have friends that are currently going through similar experiences.
You do?
Oh, yeah. That have had like 2 miscarriages now. I have a friend actually. What do you say to someone in that state? Like, how can you be there for them? What advice do you have for people around that have friends and family that have gone through this?
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, I think this is the best question that you've asked like all day, because I think that that's what everyone is dying to know. Like, what do you say to someone who's going through this? And I think that honestly, there's not an awful lot you can say. I mean, you can't say, first of all, I'll tell you what you shouldn't say, because I'll tell you for sure that I know that it's just insensitive and hurtful. And even though you think that it might be nice for the person to hear, it's not. Okay. So one thing you should never say is, oh, at least you know you can get pregnant.
Ooh.
Because
people do say that actually.
And they say that, and I think that people say it out of love. I mean, I don't know. Like, I remember this. So I had this most recent loss I had twice now. People like two of my good friends is what I mean. Like, I've heard of more than that, but like two of my good friends have said, so I know they mean it out of love. And they said, at least you know you can get pregnant. And I'm like, oh, like, I just want to be like, I don't say anything back to them because I love them. I know that they just mean well, but like that, it's like so insensitive, because I'm like, yeah, but I want to have a baby. Like, I don't want to just get pregnant. I want to bring this baby home and love it and nurture it. And I don't want to go through this, like, the emotions of like believing that I'm going to have this baby, prepping for it, morning sickness, like just the whole 9 yards, and then just to lose the baby. Like, so anyways, that like triggers a nerve with me, obviously. So don't say that. And you should never say, oh, everything happens for a reason. Okay. The mom can say that, but this is like a total double standard. Like, never say, oh, it happened for a reason, or it's just like, what good reason are you given a child and taken away from you? You know, right. Whether, and also things like, at least it was early. Like, even like the mom can say that. Like, I literally just sat here and was like secretly, like I have always been kind of secret about being almost thankful that it was a chemical pregnancy and not a full blown baby, because obviously, like, at least for me, that made it a bit easier, but that doesn't mean that someone else can say that to me. Like, because it hurts, it's painful. Like, I'm like, but I would have loved to not have a chemical pregnancy and to, you know, actually have a sibling for my daughter. So those are a couple of things that I would say definitely don't say. And I'm actually currently writing my second book. It's taken me forever because I have a kid, which I'm very thankful for. But I'm writing a second book on pregnancy and going to share a whole slew of these things, because it's just not talked about enough. But some things that you can do because there's really not an awful lot you can say, but what you can do is just be there for that person. Yeah. So literally say, hey, and also honor the child by saying, you know, I love that baby too. And, you know, I can't imagine what you're going through right now. If you've never experienced loss, then you can say, I've never experienced this. I have no idea what you're going through right now, but I really love that baby too. And then just listen, let the woman spill out, or she will spill out her feelings, and just listen. Don't try to fix it. Like, don't try to say anything to make her feel better, because that's how you're going to get caught saying something that might seem sweet, but like really it's probably insensitive. And literally all you can say this too. I don't know what to say, like, and say it in a loving way. Like, I don't know what to say, but I want you to know I'm here for you, and I love you, and I love that baby. And that will be, you have no idea how much that will do for a woman. Like, truly. Yeah.
I don't want to get super graphic here, but you talk about how you really gave birth to Jonathan, and so there's that kind of miscarriage where it's a little bit later term, and it's almost like that birthing process. And then there's times where it's just a lot of blood. Like, how is a typical miscarriage if it's like 3 months or below?
Well, at 3 months, the baby is also formed. So if you were to...
You have to go to the hospital and get a procedure.
Yeah, a lot of times, well, it depends. Not necessarily. Honestly, it depends on the type of practice that whether you see a midwife would say, no, you don't have to go to the hospital. You would just do an ultrasound to make sure that essentially the procedure is a D&E or a D&C. And the idea is that it will kind of clean out your insides to make sure that there's no fragments left, because if there are, then your uterus won't be able to heal properly, won't be able to close properly, and you'll be at risk for infection, hemorrhage, multiple different things. But what's scary is that if you had something like an infection, that could prevent you from having a proper pregnancy later on. So but our bodies, I mean, 1 in 4, this happens to 1 in 4 women. So our bodies, if there's anything wrong with a baby, our bodies almost know that ahead before any sort of science knows. That's another thing too that you don't ever want to say to a woman, but it's kind of good to know if you ever go through it yourself. And it hurts like hell still. I'm not even going to pretend it doesn't, but to know that your body knew that this baby may not have been, a fully healthy baby, it just knew before anybody, even science, could figure it out first. Like that always kind of like reassured me, but you don't want to say that to a woman because they don't necessarily.
But I never knew that. That's wow.
Yeah, your body. I mean, that's
insane.
that's like human nature, like way back from the Stone Age. I mean, this has been happening for ever since our existence. And so our body will know to naturally rid of something that's not compatible with life or that isn't, like a healthy, child, I guess. And sometimes it doesn't happen. And then that's when we end up with children with disabilities. If it's not caught, or detected early, whether by science or by just your body. So, but anyways, so you could go to the hospital to have the D&E or the D&C, which is where they drain out, they eliminate everything out of your uterus and make sure that it's all gone so that it can, heal properly and you can carry a baby next. Or if you're early enough, then like 3 months and earlier, then you would, if you miscarry, naturally, then chances are you would just do a quick ultrasound with your midwife, or maybe not even that. You don't even have to check on it. And just, if you're not bleeding anymore, then, and if you don't have pain or any sort of discomfort, then you can be sure that, your body took care of, the business itself, I guess.
Jamie, did you ever see the movie Roma?
No.
What's
that about?
It's on Netflix, but I don't want to say any spoilers, so I won't say anything further since you've never seen it. But
just watch Roma.
Yeah, I think you should actually. It's in Spanish, but there's subtitles. But anyways, I don't know if you want to go back to this place, but did you? I'm curious to know, just because if this ever happens to me, did you have time to say bye to Jonathan? Like, what was that?
I did. I made time, because I'll tell you what, sometimes nurses I'm a nurse, so I said this already, so I feel like I can say this and other nurses aren't going to hate me for it, but nurses are effing busy. We are so busy in the hospital. And sometimes, it's, like I said, this is still so taboo and uncomfortable for everyone. So I didn't deliver on a labor and delivery floor. So if you deliver on a labor and delivery floor, they will definitely treat you with the utmost patience and respect. But I delivered in a stretcher, basically, in the hospital. Yeah. And so they're like, crap. Like, if you deliver your baby in the ER, like they're like, crap, like, get this, like, it's just so uncomfortable for them, because it's like not their realm. So they're like, oh my God, just get rid of everything. Like, even if it's a healthy baby, they're like, send this baby up to the L&D floor now. Like, I don't want to do this. Like, it's just uncomfortable for them. Just like if someone came in with like a stab wound, I'd be like, send them to the ER. I can't deal with this. That's not my thing. Like, give me a vagina. I got it. But, so that being said, though, if a woman, like, my best advice to a woman who is suffering a loss, whether it be, an early miscarriage or a little bit later on, you demand that time. And that's exactly what I did. I was like, do not take my baby from me immediately, because I wanted to love on him and let him know that I loved him with my whole heart and soul. And I wanted him. I can't even. Yeah. So my best advice to a mama going through it is, like, you demand their patience and you say, I want to say goodbye to my child. And maybe your child's not, sometimes they have like cleft lips, or they aren't fully formed in, some capacity. And that's scary sometimes to look at, because we're not used to seeing it. But don't let anybody rush you. Like, you tell them that you need time with this baby. And because how else can you say goodbye? Yeah. So I definitely did. My husband and I, we just sat staring at him and just like bawling and just wondering, like, what on earth happened, where we were like planning his like gender reveal party and baby showers, and then he's just there in our arms but not breathing. And it was like, what just happened? And then I just wanted him to know that he was loved, and we will spend the rest of our life thinking of him and loving on him from afar.
You're incredible, you know that.
Oh, well, thank you. But it's what's sad is that there's so many women go through this, and it's just so sad to me that it's like literally such a taboo topic. Like the fact that girl, what's her name, Hilaria Baldwin?
Yeah.
That's like newsworthy, because it's just like, that should be like, that's like, happens to so many women, and it should just be our norm. Like, so that other women who don't have a platform will have like the support and the love from their own family and friends and like their church or their community, you know?
Mm-hmm. Honestly, thanks to you, I feel like we're getting there. Like,
tens of thousands of people are going to feel better about this,
and you're so incredible, so incredible,
and be much more informed after the 45 minutes you just gave them. They are totally in a different place when it comes to this, knowing about this topic. So
I hope so.
Thank you so much, Jamie. It was really, really great listening to your story.
Honestly,
we're always thinking about you and rooting for you.
Yeah, we can't thank you enough, and you're literally changing the world. And honestly, this is like beyond my wildest dreams of like how this podcast could have turned out, because I feel like it's going to affect and impact like a lot of people listening and women going through the same thing you are.
Oh, well, I hope that they know that they're not alone. At the end of the day, that they're not alone, and there are communities out there for support if they need it. And Lauren, let me know when you're ready to get married at first sight.
Oh, definitely. I'm
ready right now.
I think of you teaching Ben how to kiss.
Oh my God.
He, God knows, needed it.
And no matter how embarrassing that moment may have been when it aired, like literally 7 years ago, you were in the right.
You were in the right.
Okay, we were all like, "What is he doing?" We were saying it before you said it, before it aired that you said it.
Wait, what's his last name?
Flanick?
Ben Flanick. For our listeners out there who don't know, Jamie was on Ben Flanick's season, and she taught him how to kiss because he did not know how to use his tongue.
Not even his tongue. He didn't know how to lip lock.
Yeah.
He just went peck, peck. Anyway, all right.
Peck.
You can check out her podcast. It's Cool Parents, Hot Marriage, Cool Parents.
And where can we find you on
cute.
social media, Jane?
Yeah, so I'm at Jamie and Otis, and truly, if there's anyone out there who is going through a loss or knows someone who's gone through a loss, you just shoot me a message, and I'll be happy to help you in any way that I can. Really,
amazing. You're great.
You're amazing. We love you.
Thank you
Thanks,
so much.
Jamie.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
That was unreal. Like, she was so raw and unfiltered, and I truly feel like Jamie's story is going to help change the world.
Also,
and that's exactly what I wanted this podcast
she
to be.
taught a lot of information. She gave us a lot of information.
Oh, yeah.
It's so emotional. It's a real loss.
I think that because of Jamie, it was kind of why I was talking to you before about like being like, no, I think like it started to be talked about more. Like, I don't know if women are thinking the exact same way. I think she was definitely one of the conversation starters for the public.
Because no one comes to mind. I'm sure there are a lot. And actually, I feel like there is
real,
a big
celebrities, though.
But I can't, for some reason, I just can't think of it right now.
I can't think of celebrities who have really talked about infertility issues, except for like Nicole Kidman, who's never talked about it, but everybody always assumed.
Oh, I never knew that about Nicole.
Well, we're going to talk to some of the I Don't Get It people on our message boards, and they have a couple of stories of their own. So we're going to give Alex a call.
All right. We got Alex on the phone. Alex, hello.
Hi, ladies. How are you?
Hi. Would you like to share your story of your miscarriage?
Yeah, I actually have two stories. Starting last April, so 1 year ago, we had announced to our families on Easter, so April Fool's Day last year was Easter, that we were pregnant. And 3 days later, we went in for an ultrasound. It should have been an almost 12 weeks along ultrasound, and learned that our baby had lost her heartbeat almost 2.5 weeks prior to that.
No.
She was only measuring at 8.5 weeks when we went in for a 12-week appointment. So they labeled it a missed miscarriage because my body had zero signals that anything was wrong. Like, all of my symptoms were still there. I had no changes in my body whatsoever. So that was so awful because we had just had this huge celebration with my family and my husband's family and celebrating this big momentous moment in our life, just to have it crashing down 3 days later. So we were given a few options. Oh, it's okay. Thank you. So we were given a few options, and we went for the surgery option, So we had a DNC the next day. And if you want the biggest, I don't get it ever.
Yeah.
They sent us in the next morning, and my surgery was scheduled for 10 a.m., but they wanted us there at 8 so I could get some blood work done.
Uh-huh.
I got there at 8, got my blood work done, and then they had told me, oh, our blood work machine isn't working, so we can't read your blood work and get your surgery started until we can get your blood work read. And I'm like,
oh, sweet.
oh, okay. And I wasn't allowed to eat anything.
Oh,
and
Lord.
so they said, you need to come back at 1 o'clock in the afternoon and we'll try again. So I literally just drove home and sat on the couch and pretty much cried for a few hours until I went back and then had my surgery later that day, but was so hungry at the end because I hadn't eaten pretty much for 24 hours that I had 2 Western bacon cheeseburgers from Carl's Jr. and did not feel bad about it.
Fuck yeah, girl.
That diet. Okay.
Wait, what is it? What does
What's the
DNC
surge-
stand for?
DNC, I can't pronounce the words correctly, but pretty much what they did is they put me under. I was under anesthesia. I was put out, and then they open your uterus and pretty much scrape you clean.
So it's
and
like a real, like under, like in the OR type surgery.
Yes.
I heard that you can take a pill and do the whole procedure at home, kind of.
Yeah.
Is that true?
You can. Yes, you can. That was one of the many options they gave us. But my doctor was, she didn't make me feel too comfortable with that option because she's like, you have the possibility of like bleeding out, which is not what you want to have happen.
Okay,
But
I'll take any other option, thank you.
Right. But the second problem that you could potentially have is not everything passes on its own. So you would have to have surgery regardless if it didn't pass on its own.
Why would they even give that as an option?
Because some people just don't want to have surgery if they possibly don't have to.
Yeah.
So
I get that.
I was so like, just get it done and over with because I don't want to deal with it. And if you can get it all out, like whatever. So we went that route. We ended up paying a lot of money out of pocket for it. But I mean, it's the choice that we made at the time.
It wasn't covered by insurance.
No,
Not to like
and
get
as I
into
was-
your insurance.
What?
Not to
I
get
mean, fuck.
not to get into your insurance plan.
No, you're
I'm
fine.
sure some will cover it, but
Yes. Not all of it was covered. I think
Okay.
it ended up being
I'm so over
almost
this
$20,000. Yeah, it was
No.
like almost $20,000,
Shut
and
up.
I paid about $4,500.
you paid
Which-
$4,500. Okay,
I was so angry sitting there because they kept making me sign the papers and making me do
Are
the
you
payments.
fucking kidding me?
And I'm like, oh my gosh, like you guys really just don't want to make this any easier for me. It was so awful.
What a terrible, terrible day.
I don't
It
like that
was.
hospital. Let's call him out.
Well, it's not
Yeah.
just the hospital.
Yeah, it is. They
it was-
sent her home because their blood thing was
Oh,
not
well, yeah,
working.
that-
I would have.
yeah.
I would have fucked
No,
him out with
yes,
the president
yes,
the next
yes.
day. Do you know what they did to her emotions?
No,
Yeah.
I forgot
Yes,
about that
it was
part.
Fuck
really
that
an
hospital.
emotional, like, it messes with your mind.
You
But
had
we ended up
second miscarriage, you said, and that was a blighted ovum. Can you explain to us what that is?
So, I got pregnant. We found out we were pregnant again on Thanksgiving. So I had shown my husband my pregnancy test, and I was like, we have something extra to be thankful for this year. And we were like, we had this cute moment. And then I started doing all my blood work, and my blood work wasn't going well. So when you get a positive pregnancy test, it's checking your HCG levels. So when you start doing your blood work, your HCG level should be doubling every like 2 to 3 days. And mine wasn't doubling. It was raising, but not enough. And then your progesterone, which helps to support the baby making, my progesterone was going down. And so in the end, I had gone to the doctor because I was like, I don't understand what's going on. So she said, you have a blighted ovum, which essentially is your baby sac grows, but there was no baby growing inside of it. So my body had realized that once our egg and our sperm got together, that it was already not going to go well. So my body, being as smart as it was, just shut it down right away, but still grew this sac. So in that case, because I had a sac growing, I decided to take the medicine to pass that on its own because it wasn't as severe or as far along as our first miscarriage. So that one wasn't as fun because I was traveling when that started to pass on its own.
Oh, wow.
So I was a little miserable for that, but
I don't want to
mean, it's-
ask graphic questions, but
No,
like,
you're fine.
where do you
like wear
go
a
on
big
the
pad?
toilet
Or
Yeah, so it when it first started, it felt like a severe period. Like my periods aren't very bad at all. Like I have some mild cramping, but nothing that sets me down. And this one, I was like, my legs were shaking so bad because my cramps were horrible. But then the cramps went away and then I felt better. And then 2 days later, not to sound graphic, I passed what was like a little bigger than a golf ball blood clot. That was very obviously like a baby sac.
The sac,
and
yeah.
and it was like, okay. And I wasn't quite sure what to do with it. So it was one of those awkward moments of like, well, now
I'm not gonna
what?
flush it down the toilet.
Yeah, it was
That is so odd. Like, what
It
do
was
you
kind
do?
of odd. Yeah.
Did-
so
So the first one was a missed miscarriage, which that's the first time I've actually ever heard that term when you said it. And the second
Yeah.
one was a different reason. And we just learned talking to Jamie before you that actually a lot of women don't know what the actual cause is. Like they know what happens
Right.
biologically. Do you know what the actual cause is, or does no one know?
So, yeah, my first one, we decided because I had the surgery to get that tissue tested. So they sent the tissue to wherever they sent it to. And it came back that fetus had what was called Turner syndrome. So essentially it's the opposite of Down syndrome. So Down syndrome, they have an extra chromosome, where Turner syndrome, they have one less chromosome. And my doctors had actually told me that's one of the most common forms of miscarriages. I don't know how accurate that is, but they had told me that.
Okay.
Because when your fetus has Turner syndrome, that your body just knows like this baby won't survive out in the world because of the way that their genetic makeup is. So it just kind of shuts it down. But I mean, mine was a missed miscarriage because her heartbeat had. Oh, so Turner syndrome only happens in girls. So when we found out that we had a fetus with Turner syndrome, we learned that she was a girl. Yeah.
Excuse
So-
my naivete, but
No, you're fine.
but can Turner syndrome be born into life?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm. So most fetuses who have Turner syndrome end up passing in utero. So you end up having a miscarriage. But the ones that do survive don't live a fulfilling life. From what I was reading when we learned about it, I obviously don't know anybody with Turner syndrome, so I don't know how accurate that is. But you know, when you have this awful thing happen to you, you want to read all about it. So a lot of what I read about was girls who have Turner syndrome don't live as much of a fulfilling life as you possibly could.
Okay.
So that, you know, for us was
Makes you feel better.
okay. Yeah. So yeah, she has her angel wings and she's safe in heaven, and you know, we'll have our rainbow baby eventually. So that was the first one. With the blighted ovum, they just said so Turner syndrome and blighted ovums both can be a fluke, is what they say, quote unquote fluke. But it has to do with your genetics. And so we actually, after the blighted ovum, went to go speak to a genetic counselor because I don't like that it's happened twice, you know, but the
Right.
doctors are like, these things just happen. And I'm a teacher, so like your body can be stressed sometimes, and stress can play a huge part in having a healthy pregnancy. And so they're like, it could just be a fluke. And so we sat with this genetic counselor, and she pretty much said, you guys don't have any red flags, but if we wanted to get our blood checked, it would have cost us $3,000. And it was just like, no.
So
Okay.
what makes
So
you
insane.
are there genetics that make women more prone to have miscarriages?
That's the answer I don't have.
I think that's like
I
what
don't know.
everyone wants to know is like, can a miscarriage be prevented?
Like, are you just fluky? Was it just two, bad experiences and they just happen to go next to each other? Or are some women just their bodies can't handle being pregnant as easily as others, I guess?
And that's what the doctors are telling me. They're like, your body wants to be pregnant, especially with the first one, because my body held on to her for 2.5 weeks after she had already passed. So like, your body wants to be pregnant, but for some reason, something's not going right. So if we happen to get pregnant a third time and miscarry again, my next step would be, check my husband's sperm, check my eggs. Do we even have normal eggs and normal sperm? Like, what is going on here? So I don't know. Like that time will come when it comes, I guess.
Alex, I love your, like, just even talking to you. I've never met you, but you just sound like so, like, this is a normal thing. Yeah. And it happened to me and it happened twice. And you sound like so okay about it. And I just pray and wish that upon anyone going through this.
Yeah. When we miscarried the first time, I was like, right away, I was very open with it. I went right to my social media and I was like, hey, listen, here's what happened. Here's what's going on. Here's our story. And I had so many people come at me with messages and phone calls and different things. And I'm like, I had no idea you've been through this. Like, even a lot of my close friends, I'm like, wow, why doesn't anybody share these experiences or talk about it? Because it's created such a community for me to find women who have stories just like me, but have also like gone on and had very healthy babies. Like they just had either fluke miscarriages or something. But when I saw your post on Facebook, I'm like, yes, like, please talk about this. Please talk about like how normal this is. Like, as much as it sucks and it's so emotionally draining, like we've been trying to get pregnant for 1.5 years and all we have to show for it is 2 miscarriages, you know? So it's like, okay. And so,
Alex, what advice, last question I'll ask is, what advice do you have to women out there that maybe have gone through a miscarriage to hold on to hope? Because it sounds like you're just full of hope and it's so like, you're like a light beam. Like I like feel so it. Sweet. Yeah.
I honestly, the biggest thing that has helped me is talking about it, whether I'm talking about it to somebody who understands or talking about it to somebody who doesn't. But the more I talk about it, the better I feel about it. Like, of course, like, honestly, every month I get my period, I cry to my husband. I'm like, okay, like it didn't happen again, but you know, God willing, maybe next month, you know, and you kind of go through this process, but to try to like I don't know how religious you guys are, but I pray all the time. I'm like, I know there's some kind of plan for me in this world and I find comfort in that. So I think wherever people find comfort in their emotions is the best way to handle it. But honestly, for me, just talking about it, there's a lot of support groups online with women who are exactly like us, who want to talk to you and want to share their stories. Because I honestly feel like when people have similar stories to you, it's very comforting because you don't feel like you're alone in the world.
Right. You know,
and so alone. I feel, I think it's really great to have that.
Can you name a couple? Can you name a couple support groups just so people listening?
You know, I don't. Honestly, some of them are just like podcast support groups. They have like, you know, you guys have like your I Don't Get It podcast group, but then I don't know if you guys have any branched off. So I have a lot of branched off podcast groups that are like this podcast, but trying to conceive, or this podcast, you know.
That'd be like Jade and Carly's, what is it? Mommy's Tell All.
Yeah.
Yeah, but even like on your post, you saw all of these women that are like, yeah, here's my story. And I saw one girl who had the exact same story as I did. And I was like, hey, and I commented on hers too. And I was like, you have the same story as me. Like I was like, if you want to talk or just like kind of share stories, like I would love to chat with you, or I'd love to just be there with you, because I think it's so important to walk through life with people who can be emotionally supportive for you.
With community. So, you're the best. Thanks for coming on and sharing your story.
So much.
No, thank you. It was so nice talking to you.
Good talking to you. Thanks for coming so prepared.
Ashley,
yeah.
You actually Skyped my class and read your book to my classroom a couple weeks ago.
That's you. Hello.
That was me. Hi.
Oh my gosh, well, I'm so glad that this is you. Sorry, Lauren books the guests usually for the podcast. That's so awesome. Well, I'm so glad that you're on here, that we had another moment together.
Of course. It was when I got Lauren's message, I was like, oh, so fun.
Oh, good. Oh, you're lovely. If if we're ever in the Irvine area, Jared and I would love to come and read the book to like your class next year.
Or any books.
I know they're probably they heard Lucy and Clark a number of times.
That book got so much love after that. I've had to tape a few pages together.
Oh, that's the best.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Alex.
Well, thanks, ladies.
Talk to you soon. Bye.
You too. Bye.
Listening to her and asking that question about what women are most prone to miscarriages. I'm not saying I did intense research because it was just 5 minutes ago. I just pulled up something on the internet.
What'd you find?
The most common causes of miscarriage for what they can come up with. I don't know if these are in any numerical order.
Source?
It's parents.com, so it's pretty good. Chromosomal abnormalities, which is what she just experienced. Thyroid disorders. Diabetes. Lifestyles such as drug and alcohol abuse, smoking. Physical complications. They say this is less common, but significant occurrences of miscarriages can be caused by physical problems with the mother, such as urinary abnormalities, including septum or polyps, or cervical incompetence. So just like other like things, I guess I would say it probably is like an endometriosis type thing.
Something that's
some growths in the area. Blood clotting disorders and immunological disorders. So like if you have autoimmune issues.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'd love to also ask, I want to know if there's anything you can do. There's probably nothing you can do to prevent it, huh? But we have one more caller, right?
We do have one more caller. And she is kind of an expert in this field.
She counsels couples that have gone through miscarriages, which is incredible.
Yeah,
so I'd love to ask her.
We're going to give her a call, and she's going to answer some questions very quickly. Okay, let's give her a call.
Hello, Allison. Welcome to the I Don't Get It podcast.
Hi. So nice to talk to you guys.
Oh, thanks for coming on. It's so unreal what you do on a daily basis.
It is pretty amazing. I am very lucky to have the job that I have. But, to also have that connection with them of having experienced it myself too kind of brings like a common thread between us. So
do you want to explain to our audience listening what you do?
Sure. Yeah, of course. Okay. So I am a board certified music therapist. And I have actually recently ventured into starting a business where I work with individuals and couples who are either experiencing miscarriage or infant loss or fertility challenges, even in pregnancy and after they have the baby, and just like navigating being a parent. So it's pretty cool to use music as that mode of like opening up communication and allowing them to bond with their family and themselves and, reduce anxiety and stress and all of that. So, it's a pretty amazing career.
I'm in awe because I feel like I've met a couple of people that have gone to college and majored in music psychology. And I'm like, how does that work? And now just hearing what you're saying, and I'm like, wow, everyday hero.
Oh, thank you.
Good for you for using your major. Can you, I have a couple questions to you, because we've talked to now 2 women who have been through multiple miscarriages. Since you obviously talk to people, have you gone through one yourself or?
Yeah. So I was kind of explaining to Lauren in our message that I never really knew for sure if I was or not. Because I never had a pregnancy test, and it was so early that luckily I'm like super in tune with my body. So I knew something was like different. And right around the time that I was about to take a test, I had like this weird TMI discharge that I've never had before and never had since.
Can you describe it?
Yeah, it was like a normal like cycle, but it was tissue. So it was like clumps of tissue. And like a lot more blood, and it wasn't around my usual time, and I'm pretty consistent. And it was like a weird mix of too many coincidental, like, I was on antibiotics, and birth control and, no condom kind of thing. So it was like, I just kind of had this feeling of like, that all of this timing lines up to like that event. And so even if I never had like that yes or no answer, it made me feel even more emotional because like I felt guilty for like even wanting to say that it was.
Wow, you should never feel that way.
And like as a therapist, logically I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so dumb. Why are you guilting yourself? But like personally, it was like a weird mixed bag of emotions. So
can you describe the guilt and why you felt like you felt guilt?
Yeah, well, I've had friends and acquaintances that have, gone through some pretty traumatic miscarriages or, infant loss. And, I never want to compare my experience and theirs, but I feel like, theirs, they knew for sure that they were going to, be having this child and had these expectations and these dreams. And for me, it was like I never knew if it was or not. So I felt guilty for like wanting to share. And I actually, I held on to it for a year and a half. I never told anybody. And I actually just recently, today, told my boyfriend about it.
Oh my God. What made you tell him today?
Was possibly the father?
Yeah.
What do you say?
Yeah, he was amazing. He was like, he at first went, wait, what? And then he was like, okay, you know, he was like, I'm so glad you told me. I get why you didn't. It was so early in our relationship.
Did you tell him because you were coming on the podcast?
Yeah, that's what I want to know.
I did. That post motivated me to tell him. And I don't think I think I would have eventually, like maybe eventually, like we're talking, you know, eventually having kids and things. So I probably would have shared that. But I think that it kind of motivated me to go, all right, I think it's time. And I, you know, I've been back and forth about it for a while, you know, starting the work that I'm doing, and was like, you know, I need to share this. And then I was like, I'll wait. And then, you know, just this back and forth. So
my heart breaks for people that always feel guilty. It's similar to heartbreak. Like when people come into Heartbroken Anonymous and they share, they're like, well, I didn't go through a divorce and I was only dating this. And I go, it doesn't matter.
Your pain is
the pain is the same. No one can equate it.
Yeah.
There's no, there's no compare and contrast.
Could you tell us a little bit about like your therapy sessions with someone who just went through a loss or a miscarriage? Like what do you do for them?
Of course, yeah. So obviously everybody's different, you know, the session's going to be very individualized, and it's going to be based on where they are in their grief process. So, you know, if it just happened, they may not be ready to share. And the cool thing about music is that you don't have to tell me. You don't even have to utter a word. We could just play together, and just that support of, you know, playing music together or listening to music together and just being in a room, that offers a lot of peace. Until it's time and they're ready to talk about it and share those feelings or, you know, the actual experience. So it all kind of depends on where they are. And like I said, timing. And like, even for myself, you know, I totally think timing was a key factor in me, you know, feeling comfortable enough to share, because I processed it on my own over, you know, a year and a half. But I feel so much lighter after sharing it.
Since you've spoken to many women who've gone through this, I'm assuming, what are some common misconceptions of the thoughts that go through a woman that's just been through a miscarriage?
There's a lot of, like I mentioned, guilt. And it's all different kinds of guilt. It's, you know, what could I have done health-wise? You know, was I too stressed? Was I too anxious? Did I do enough? Why did it have to happen to me? Did I do something wrong? You know, just all these things that go through your mind. Feeling like they could have reached out for help and they didn't, you know, just all kinds of guilting yourself and putting yourself down kind of thing. So it's really sad because sometimes I see that like reflected in myself. And so I feel very honored to be able to help other women and families and individuals who are going through this and processing these things. And the fact that they've even reached out for help is a huge step. Because it is, a lot of people, they identify themselves. Like, for instance, the couples and individuals that come in with fertility challenges, they make it into their identity. And so then it's hard to separate that and tell someone, it's not your identity. It's not who you are. It's just something, a disease that you've experienced or an event that you've experienced that, you know, obviously it stinks and it's negative. But to, like, for instance, in music therapy, create art around something that was so hurtful and so painful, and then have something beautiful out of that you can then share and keep with you. It's, my boyfriend even mentioned this earlier when we were talking about it. He said something about, you know, now it's a part of our story. And I thought that was so beautiful.
Oh, he's so sweet.
He's very nice.
He's amazing. I'm very lucky.
Where do you live and where can people find you if they want to have therapy?
Of course. So I am in Dallas, Texas, in Frisco. And they can find me online, actually. My business is Music and Miracles. And my Instagram is at M&M, like the candy, therapy. And Facebook is the same, facebook.com/M&M therapy.
Well,
my God,
I'm so
you're
glad we
great.
found. I'm so
I
glad we
know.
found you. This is the perfect
I know.
ending to this podcast as a way
Oh,
to
thank you, guys.
let people cope with the struggles that they're going through. So
Yeah,
thank you
and
so
know
much.
that there's resources out there
Yeah.
such as yours and many
Yeah,
others.
and I would just say don't be afraid to reach out. It's so important to share. And eventually you'll feel comfortable enough to share with someone. But I want to thank you guys for opening up that discussion and having a safe place for people to feel like they can share these things. And it's really important. And, it helped me too. So, so thank you guys.
You're
Thank
the
you so
best.
much.
Thank you for coming on.
Of course, anytime. And good luck with everything, Ashley.
Oh, thank you. You too.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
What a sweetness.
Wow. Amazing.
All right. Well, this was such a worthwhile podcast. I'm really
I'm
glad we
so
did this
happy
topic.
we did it. I feel like we need to do more in this space.
Me too.
And
Female
not just
health.
miscarriages, just
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
much more.
Yeah.
I really want to do a herpes one too.
Well, we could do an STD one.
Right?
Yeah.
I feel like people are so embarrassed to they think they'll never get married or they'll never be able to
For sure, we
have
have
a
to
kid.
do that.
And I would love to normalize that too.
I would and Lauren, this may sound bad, but
What?
one of your biggest fears is
The herpes breakout thing also with Coachella is a great segue
Okay.
that we can do.
anyway. Think it would be interesting if we had people who had them come on
Yeah,
and talk about how it
absolutely.
affects their life, and if it was as scary as some people perceive it to be.
Yeah, and just make it normal. But guys, thanks for listening. Honestly, thanks to all the 3 women that came on today and were so brave to share their story. And let us know in the Facebook group, guys. Also follow us on Instagram at I Don't Get It Podcast. And just let us know if there's other things that you would like for us to have people come on and talk on that maybe is taboo in the world.
Yeah. All right. Thank you all for listening. Bye.
Bye. Love you guys.
Podcast. This podcast is brought to you by Wave Podcast Network. Check out all of our shows, including the Brain Candy Podcast, I Don't Get It, Babes and Babies, Coffee Convos, and Let's Talk About It.